Welcome back, everybody. I'm so glad you decided to join us again for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at, you guessed it, Taoism.
One of my favorite topics.
Now, as always, we like to go a little deeper, and today we're going to be using this personality quiz from the Spiritual Seek as a jumping-off point.
Right, not like a, be-all, end-all definitive thing.
Yeah, not a label or anything, more like a fun way to see how your views might, line up.
The fun way to think about these ideas, yeah.
Yeah. So, are you ready to dive into these questions?
Absolutely. Hit me with them.
All right, first one. What is the primary focus of Taoist philosophy? I think this is a great place to start because it gets at, the very essence.
For sure. And the answer here is A, achieving harmony with the Tao. Taoism really emphasizes understanding the natural order of the universe, that interconnectedness, and finding your place within that flow.
Okay, question 2. Which text is considered foundational to Taoist teachings? Now, I feel like, if you're into Taoism, you probably already know this one.
You're probably right, but it's A, the Tao Te Ching, a text that is often attributed to the sage Lao Tzu, and it's just full of wisdom about humility, simplicity, and finding that effortless way of being.
Effortless action. That takes us to question 3. How does Taoism view the concept of wu-wei? This is a concept that I think can be easy to misunderstand.
Definitely, it's not about being lazy or anything. A, effortless action or non-action, that's the key here. So acting in a way that is aligned with the natural flow of things without that unnecessary force or struggle.
I love that. Okay, question 4. This one, I bet everyone's seen this, even if they've never, read about Taoism. What does the Yin-Yang symbol represent in Taoism? But, it's more than just a symbol, right?
Right. There's so much depth to it. And A, it's about the balance and interdependence of opposites. So like light and dark, masculine and feminine, they're not seen as these conflicting forces, but rather complementary aspects of a unified whole.
I love that. Everything's connected. Okay, question 5. A little bit of history here. Who is traditionally credited as the founder of Taoism?
Yeah, so while there is some mystery around the origins of Taoism, A, Lao Tzu is the answer, the figure most associated with the Tao Te Ching, and the foundations of Taoism.
Okay, last one. This is question 6. What role do deities play in traditional religious forms of Taoism? And, I think this one's interesting because it's not a simple answer.
It's not black and white. So A, deities in Taoism are often seen as more symbolic representations than literal, all-powerful beings. Like they might embody forces of nature or different principles.
This is about recognizing the divine, both within us and around us.
Exactly. And it comes back to that idea of interconnectedness. Everything's part of this big cosmic dance,
Right.
even the deities.
I love that. All right, so we've gone through all 6 questions. How'd you do?
Hopefully it got you thinking. More than anything, it's not about a score, right? It's about sparking some curiosity and having a conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it'd be fun to explore some of these concepts a little deeper. We talked about wu-wei, effortless action, but how do we apply that in our, daily lives, which are often anything but effortless?
Such a good question, and one that I know has challenged people for centuries, but think about it. Have you ever noticed that sometimes forcing a solution can lead to resistance, but then when you step back and observe and allow things to unfold naturally, sometimes you get these amazing breakthroughs?
Oh, totally. Like when you're working on a creative project and then you finally take a break or go for a walk, and then boom, the answer comes to you.
Precisely. So wu-wei is kind of about recognizing that sometimes the most effective action is to align yourself with the natural flow of things rather than trying to, control or manipulate them.
Like letting go of that need to be in control all the time, which can be incredibly freeing,
It can be. And you see that in the yin-yang symbol as well.
Right.
It reminds us that those seemingly opposite forces are not actually in conflict, but in this state of dynamic balance.
Yeah, there's that saying, what you resist persists. The more you try to push away or deny certain aspects of yourself, the world, the stronger those things seem to become. But if you embrace the interplay, light and shadow, masculine, feminine, it allows for a much more holistic experience.
You got it. And this idea of interconnectedness, even with the deities in Taoism, they're not separate, superior beings, dictating rules from above. They're more like embodiments of universal principles.
And that's what I find so captivating about Taoism. It encourages us to see the divine in everything, in nature, in ourselves, in the everyday even.
It's a way of seeing the world as inherently sacred and, interconnected and always evolving.
I love that. I know we've been focused on this quiz, but
Yeah.
what are some other resources or practices that you would recommend for someone who wants to learn more?
Oh, there are so many. Of course, reading the Tao Te Ching is a great starting point. But also, I always encourage people to explore some of the practices like Tai Chi or Qigong, which are these moving meditations that help you cultivate a sense of harmony between the mind and body.
Oh, yeah, those are both on my list. I've heard they're so good for, well-being.
Absolutely. And then, there are tons of books and online resources that go deeper into the philosophy and the history and the practices.
Yeah. Amazing how this, ancient wisdom is still so relevant. But I think the key is finding ways to bring these principles into action, into daily life.
Completely agree. It's not just about, the knowledge, but about really embodying it, letting it shape your worldview.
It's about finding that sense of flow, that effortless alignment with the Tao. Speaking of which, I'm curious, what about the scoring for this quiz? I mean, is there like is there a way to figure out like how Taoist you are based on this?
Well, yeah, they have like a little scoring system, 0 to 6 points based on how many A answers you picked. Like, if you've got all A's, you're like a Taoist master or something.
I love it. I feel like, regardless, this was just a fun way to start thinking about these ideas.
Exactly.
And I think, one thing that really stood out to me was this whole concept of the Tao itself. It's like this elusive concept of the natural order of things, right?
Yeah, and it's really hard to wrap your head around. It's everything and nothing.
It is. It's like the source of all creation.
Yeah.
Yet it's also beyond our, ability to fully grasp or define.
And that's where the real beauty of Taoism lies, I think. It's this sense of mystery, of embracing the unknown.
I love that. So it's not about, controlling or imposing our will on the world, but rather like surrendering to the flow of existence, which sounds a lot easier than it is.
It's definitely a practice for sure. And I think it challenges a lot of our ingrained Western ways of thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we're so used to wanting to be in control, always striving, always pushing forward. But Taoism encourages us to let go a little bit, trust the process.
Trust the Tao.
Trust the Tao. Yeah, exactly.
Which, isn't about being passive necessarily, but it is about understanding that sometimes the most effective action is to kind of align ourselves with that natural flow of things rather than trying to fight against it.
It's like going with the current instead of trying to swim upstream.
Perfect analogy. And, you were talking about how it's hard to fully grasp the concept of the Tao, right? And I think that's where the practices come in, things like Tai Chi and Qigong. They can help us experience that flow more directly in our bodies.
It's embodied knowledge.
Exactly. Not just intellectual, but something you feel.
Yeah. I think it's like a lot of Eastern philosophies are like that, It's not just about thinking about it, but about actually experiencing it.
For sure. And those practices can also help us cultivate that sense of balance and harmony that's so central to Taoism, too.
Yeah, it's interesting how those practices tie back into those core principles we were talking about, like Ru Wei and the balance of opposites. That reminds me, we talked about the Yin-Yang symbol earlier. Like, it's one thing to intellectually understand it, but to actually feel that balance within yourself.
Right, like finding that sweet spot between effort and ease, between doing and being.
Yeah, it's like a dance.
It is a dance. And, the more we practice, the more we learn to move with the rhythm of life.
I love that. Okay, well, I'm curious to hear from you, what stood out the most from this deep dive? Was there anything that sparked a new insight or just something that really resonated with you?
What's fascinating to me is how the simple personality quiz can open up these profound questions about life and existence. For me, it circles back to the idea of the Tao itself, that elusive, natural order, the way things just are.
And it's kind of paradoxical.
Oh, for sure.
Because it's everything and nothing,
Yeah.
Like the source of all creation.
Yeah.
Yet it's also beyond our capacity to really understand or define.
Absolutely. And that's where I think the real beauty of Taoism is. That mystery, embracing the unknown, not about forcing our will, but more surrendering to it.
Yeah. It's a reminder that we're not separate from nature, but rather a part of it, right?
Totally.
And that's, it's kind of humbling,
It is humbling. Definitely shifts your perspective, moving from a mindset of control to acceptance.
And I think that shift can really impact everything, our relationships, work, even personal growth.
Absolutely. And it's ongoing, right? It's not okay, I've arrived, I've got it. Just like the yin-yang, there's always, light and shadow, action and stillness, expansion and contraction.
Yeah, finding that balance.
Exactly. And that, to me, is like the essence of Taoism, embracing that paradox, that mystery, and just that ever-changing flow of existence.
Well, it's been a joy diving into this with you today. I hope all of our listeners feel, inspired to learn more.
Yeah, keep exploring.
Yeah. And as you go about your week, think about this. How can you invite a little more of that Taoist flow into your life? Maybe it's through practicing Wu-Wei or embracing that balance, or just taking a moment to appreciate like that interconnectedness of everything.
Little thing.
Yeah, little things. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.